Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to do a little bit of a comparison between the two headphones I have right in front of me, the HIFIMAN SUNDARA and the HE500. So I know at first glance, if you do notice, these are actually not at a similar price point at when they are actually released. The HIFIMAN, the HE500 was at around $900, while at the time of release the SUNDARA was around $500. However, if you're going to purchase a new set of SUNDARAs and a second-hand set of the HE500s, because you can't actually purchase the HE500s new right now, you're probably going to meet at around $300. So I don't know, maybe the HE500 might be a bit higher currently because of the old school HIFIMAN hype train going on with the HE500 and the HE6, but in a more stable second-hand market, you might be able to purchase the HE500 for around $300 to $500 in its price. So with that out of the way, this SUNDARA is personally owned. However, the HE500 was led to me by a subscriber and a friend of the channel. Yeah, from Indonesia. So I don't know if I should mention his name. From Adi Surya. Thank you so much, Adi Surya, for lending this unit to us. This is, by the way, sadly, it's not a non-modded pair of HE500s. It's actually fuzzer modded. I'm not going to remove the earpads, the Svara earpads, in this video because it took a while to actually fix them in the HE500 SE 500s. I'm sorry. Yeah, these are actually fuzzer modded. If you don't know what fuzzer mods look like, you can just look it up in HEFI. There are plenty of it going around. Maybe not only HEFI, you can also find them in like SBAF or something. But yeah, these are fuzzer modded. Sonically, they might make slight differences, but not so much that I can't make a comparison, I guess. So because I've already listened to a non-modded version of the HE500s, and these are, while it has a slight difference in their overall timbre, and it sounds a bit more damped, I guess. They overall have a very similar presentation. So yeah. About the pads, however, this is currently, as I mentioned before, this is Svara pads, because in my opinion, I tried various different pads. Okay, of course I've tried the original velour pads, and it's not my favorite. Definitely not my favorite. I tried these perforated leather, sheepskin leather pads. They are good sounding. However, it's a bit too mid-forward for me. I have the Focus A pad right here. It's fairly decent, I guess. It's fairly decent, but it's a bit too warm and it's a bit too dark, I guess. Dark sounding for me. The SUNDARA pads and the Svara pads are very, very good. However, I ended up picking the Svara pads because of a reason that we are going to talk about later in this video. So yeah, that's it for the HE500s. Now let's get to the comparison. First things first, the build quality. The overall build quality and the whole construction and structural integrity and those kind of things. I think HIFIMAN had made a lot of refinements to their design of headphones. However, I do actually prefer the headband shape and material, I guess, of the not the gimbal material, but the headband material of the older set of HIFIMAN's HE500 or 400 series or this HE series, rather than the newer Deva type of headband or the Edition XS. I think these are simply more comfortable, and they have the type of premium feel to them, somewhat like the HE4XX type of headband, but slightly a bit more padding, I guess, and also a bit more comfortable. However, I do have seen quite a few of these older sets of HIFIMAN rust. They tend to rust at their gimbals and the metal parts of the headband. So yeah, I don't think anything over like $500 should be able to rust if you put in a more humid environment. However, you do actually can replace the headbands of the HE500s. However, you do need to be a bit more ballsier about it, because you need to drill holes. You actually don't need to drill holes, but these screws are amazingly difficult to remove because they strive very easily. So you all, of course, probably know how the SUNDARA is built, and they are very, very, very rigid feeling. They sound very, they feel very good, I guess, in the hands. You do have quite a bit of sharp edges here, but it's not sharp actually. It's just slightly rough, I guess. It looks very industrial. It feels very good. However, it doesn't have the best comfort for certain type of head shapes. Mine is fine, but I would prefer a bit less clamping. So, and with that, I actually bent the spring steel headband a bit for less clamping, and it turns out very, very well. It's very comfortable right now, and I can really wear these for hours and hours without feeling any fatigue or anything. As similarly, I can say that for the HIFIMAN HE500s, and the headband is also quite bendable and shapeable, I guess, in accordance to your head shape. So yeah, both have the pros and cons. The HE500 has a slight cup swivel here, not so much in the SUNDARA, I guess. But the newer ear pads, I guess, makes the SUNDARA a bit more comfortable too. So yeah, you do have to replace the older ear pads for one, better sound, and two, better comfort too, for something like the SUNDARA or the Sesvara ear pads. I know the ear pads is a bit expensive, I guess, but I think the improvements in comfort and sound quality really pays off, I guess. So I don't really mind forking the extra cash for the ear pads. Okay, the sound quality. Finally, we get to the sound quality. The general tonality of both of these headphones are somewhat neutralish sounding. The HIFIMAN SUNDARA I would consider around perfectly neutral. It might be a bit brighter than something like the HE600s, but it's still in the range of what I consider as neutrally tuned, especially for a planar headphone. And the HE500s, I think it's somewhat neutral, but it's more tilted towards the darker side, I guess. It's a bit darker, it's a bit warmer sounding, thicker sounding. In its presentation, I would consider the overall tonality as somewhat the middle ground between modern HIFIMAN and old school Odyssey headphones, like a mix between the LCD2s and the SUNDARAs, I guess. Just you add a little bit more piercing, definitely in it, and that's quite a problem for the older sets of HIFIMANs, because I do have a HE6 and they do have a very similar problem in the treble region as the HE500s. Although the HE500 is a bit darker, it's actually quite a bit darker than the HE6. The piercing, yeah, it's the HE500 and the HE6 both are very piercing sounding headphones. So yeah, the piercingness of both of these headphones is quite noticeable, even at the darker tuned HE500s. It might also be a bit more pronounced because of the dark nature of the HE500. So yeah, you do tend to notice it a bit more in the HE500s rather than the HE6, because the HE6 is a bit brighter in general. So and the balance of the harmonics is not as good as in the HE500s than the SUNDARAs or the HE6, and it's somewhat a character of the older school HIFIMAN to have that 9 to 11k peak, and it's very difficult actually. If you are sensitive to that 9 to 11k peak, it's very difficult for you to listen to piercing sounding headphones, because it's difficult for you to pick out music to listen to. For example, if you're prone to sibilance, mostly you can listen to a lot of less sibilant recordings. I guess a better recording. However, the 9 to 11k in particular is what a lot of people might consider, or would say, the definition range. It's the frequency range that gives definition and structure, I guess, to the sound. And it brings out the sense of clarity and detail to the music. That's why quite a few well-recorded music actually have an elevation there. And if the headphones also have the exact same elevation there, yeah, it tends to get piercing up there. So you gotta deal with it. But if you're very sensitive to that region, I do have an earpad that's quite an interesting pick for mitigating that type of piercing quality, which is actually the current pad I'm using for the HE6. It's the Yaxi Fostex Comfort Alcantara edition. For some reason, these actually kill almost all resonances, treble resonance of the headphone, making it sound very, very clean and amazing, I guess. And it also kills the 9k peak, 9 to 11k peak here. It doesn't kill all of the treble, definitely, but it lowers slightly all of the treble. Lowers all of the treble slightly. And even though these can fix the problems of the piercing quality of the HE500s, you can't actually fix the headphone, because unlike the HE6 that has a very good amount of treble energy, the HE500 actually need somewhat of those resonances, because it's actually too dark sounding with these earpads in particular. I actually made a homemade HIFIMAN ring here using some plastics from a binder or something. But yeah, it does need that type of resonances, and that's probably the reason why I'm using the Sesvara earpads. It still has a bit more treble ringing there that would help with the lack of treble elevation here. But unlike the SUNDARA earpads, they kill the 9 to 11k peak better in the Sesvaras, and they are not as dark sounding as the HE400 SE or the Focus A pads, I guess. They're somewhat similar to the HE400 SE pads, so yeah. And with the newer style HIFIMANs, you tend and it's quite similar to with the Edition XS and the Anandas or the Arias. They actually refined the sound quite a bit better than the older style, and it's very, very noticeable. Everything tends to be more even in their presentation. You do have a very balanced treble presentation, and a very good, I guess, mid-range, somewhat good mid-range, linear mid-range presentation. Maybe with the Edition XS or the Nandas and Arias, you do have that 2K dip there, but not in the SUNDARAs. That's why the SUNDARA's mid-range is very, very, very good. And for overall tuning, I can't say the HE500s have anything above the SUNDARAs. Maybe in terms of bass extension, you do have that. With the Sesvara earpads, the vocals tend to sound a bit warmer. However, they still do have that sense of clarity to them, I guess, for some vocals. With the H400 SE pads or the Focus A pads, you don't have that clarity. It's just warm. So if you think that these are a bit too bright for some fucking reason, you can use those pads. I guess you can use these pads to make them a bit warmer sounding. Okay, that's the tuning. Oh, it's still good. It's still fairly good from the bass to the mid range. I get the mids. When it goes to upper mids, I do feel that the HE500 is slightly lacking in energy there, but it's still at a very, very good upper mids elevation. The mid treble, it's a bit lacking, I guess. The low and mid treble is a bit lacking here. That's what makes the headphone dark sounding. But yeah, I guess that's it for the tonality. I would say that the newer HIFIMAN is a lot more refined. It's a lot better in overall. And we get to the technicalities, I guess, for now. Because of the difference in price, I would expect that the HE500 is a lot better in terms of the technical performance. And turns out they actually do. So yeah, you do have a lot better a lot of better detail in the HE500. You do have a lot more dynamics. Definitely, it's insane how punchy the headphone is. I would call it a baby HE6 because it's definitely a baby HE6 in terms of detail and punch. It's very good. It's very good. It's very, very good in terms of its punch. I think it punches slightly better than even the Vocal Elex, and it's a very punchy headphone. And it's a punchy dynamic headphone. And this is a planar from HIFIMAN, no less. And yeah, you don't expect this amount of dynamics coming from a HIFIMAN headphone. I mean, you do have a good sense of punch here in the SUNDARAs and the Edition XS, not so much in the Nandas, but the dynamics and the weight of the hits of the HE500s is quite insane. It's very, very good. It doesn't have that bass hits out of nowhere that the HE6 have. It's not like, you do still feel somewhat of a bass presence all over the music, but the delivery of the bass here is very well textured, very well controlled, I guess. It's not as well controlled as the HE6 definitely, but it's still very good in terms of its bass dynamics and delivery and detail also. So it also has maybe around the same detail as the Elex 2, maybe around the LCD 2 level of detail, so it's also good there, I guess. While the SUNDARA is not at the level of the HE500 in terms of detail and dynamics, it's good also in their price, and this shows that HIFIMAN has the capabilities to really win, I guess, really compete in terms of technical performance at their price in a variety of different tunings. So yeah, it's fantastic. Both of these are fantastic in terms of their technical performance in their price categories, I guess, and it includes the the HIFIMAN Edition XS and the Anandas at around these price range. And for soundstage imaging, etc., I feel that the SUNDARA is a bit wider. I think the SUNDARA and the HE500 has a very similar capabilities of instrument separation and layering. I do feel that the 500 has a bit better layering capabilities than the SUNDARA, but the instrument separation sounds quite similar. For example, when I listen to tracks like Zigzag from Yutaka Yamada, that's a very, very busy track, while something like the HE6 or the Aria can separate each instrument there very well. These two tend to merge everything together into one ball of messy sound. However, I do hear the HE500s have a bit better layering capabilities first, so it has quite a bit more depth, I guess, to the sound. However, I think the HIFIMAN SUNDARA has that type of more open sounding in its soundstage and a pretty good imaging too. So both of these are excellent, I guess, in terms of spatial presentation. One is better than the other, SUNDARA being soundstage, G500 being then layering capabilities. But yeah, it's good. Both of them are decently good there too. Well, I guess that's it. In conclusion, the old school HIFIMAN. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about one of the most important part, which is timbre. The timbre of the old school HIFIMANs is simply thicker, lusher, and more organic sounding than the newer, drier sounding HIFIMANs. And it also, even as something as a Svara, something as great as the Svaras, they don't have that thick, organic, I guess, organic sounding timbre as the HE500 or the HE6, which a lot of people might like, but with that timbre you also have sacrifice a bit of sense of cleanness to the sound, I guess, and the analytical side of the spectrum, I guess, which you might like too. So it kind of depends on what you are indexing for. You still do have a sense of a quickness to the and tactility to the sound, however, but just not as clean and clear as something as a new HIFIMAN like the SUNDARAs, especially in an easy sounding, musics like the general jazz music or like vocal oriented musics, which are more easier for these headphones to reproduce. You do notice that the HIFIMAN SUNDARA might sound a bit cleaner overall than the HE500s, while the HE500s tend to sound a bit more lush and thicker, I guess. Oh well. Also, yeah, the bass here. Holy shit! It's very good. I actually mentioned it before, but yeah, it's even something that I would say, if you want that type of dynamics, this is definitely worth it, worth the purchase, just for that quality. It shocks me how good these things are and that punchy nature. Well, I guess that's it for the video. See you next time. Godspeed.